Okay, so having talked about what we're going to be discussing over the next few minutes, um, I'd like to quickly start off with talking about, before we go into Sitecore and the entire ecosystem of marketing technologies or connectors that the premise of this webinar is. I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about what is leading a lot of companies towards integrating Sitecore or any other marketing technologies together. Now, we're in a world where, marketing technologies are really far too many for us to even comprehend, and these are growing by the day. What we need to do is to look at these technologies very carefully before we pick them up, and we use them for different operations within digital marketing. When it happens that you use several technologies, it invariably leads to the concept of distributed control, where each technology is governed or run by a few people, whether externally or internally. And that leads to a structure which is basically, all about distributed control. The most important thing here is that for any marketing technology that you use, the two underlying threads are content and data. Everything runs on content as far as marketing is concerned, and every system that you use is basically going to be coughing up a lot of data that you're going to be using for the future, whether it's in that system or in any other system that you derive your reporting and insights from. Which will lead us to what we will talk about is around the hub and spoke model, which is centered around systems like Sitecore. I guess a lot of you would have seen many such stacks, over the past few years, and this list just keeps exploding. Every time you see this kind of a stack, you wonder at what and how many additions have come up in different areas within the stack. The question for marketers is, with so many platforms, what should you use? What should you discard? And if you're going to be using more than one platform, then should you even integrate them? Should you consider what are the benefits of integration, etc.? Those are questions that would keep a lot of marketers busy now and in the near future as well, because this explosion of tools and stacks really has changed the entire dynamic of digital marketing. What it means for marketing organizations everywhere is that with so many tools and different kinds of skill sets required, different kinds of end users of every tool, we end up with what is a siloed structure. This is not intended, but it happens invariably because with so many different kinds of tools, you will need different kinds of skill sets, you'll need different kind of talent, and you will probably need different kind of partners to be able to run these tools and really do the most with such tools. Now, when that happens, by default, you reach a distributed control structure, which will include things like your website, email, social, CRM, blog. It could be ratings and reviews, video platforms, content marketing, and these are just some examples. There are other examples or other kinds of tools that marketers use. Could be ABM tools, could be advocacy tools, could be any other tools that are being used by different marketing organizations. So in a way, what's happening is that with the explosion in tools, we are getting into a kind of hierarchy and structure where there are teams existing within the overall team. Nothing wrong with that, but what it does is that it kind of bloats up the entire marketing engine in terms of people, in terms of probably cost, as well as complexity. The more the tools, the more the people, the more the investment, and the more the complexity. And that's just for starters. The two common threads, as I mentioned, that are relevant for every tool are really, everything runs on content in marketing. So that's one, and that's a no-brainer. The other one is around data. For every tool that you use, whether it's marketing automation, content management, content marketing, video, uh, anything that you use will have a lot of data, because eventually you're going to be reaching out and engaging with your prospects and customers, and they'll be interacting with whatever you're using in terms of content by different tools. Those interactions are recorded, they're measured, they're tracked, and all of that leads to a lot of data. So content and data are the two underlying threads that bind basically any kind of tool that any marketing team will use. But given this kind of a distributed approach, what we tend to often miss out on is essentially this kind of a model, which is a hub and spoke based model where control and command is more central in nature, and different kinds of tools, operations, or skill sets within the overall marketing group are tied in very closely to the command center. At the moment, with the use of so many tools and in the absence of any singular point of integration with any one system, this kind of a hub and spoke model is difficult to achieve. Not that this is any good, in terms of comparing the two models. It's not necessary that this model is better than the distributed model that I spoke about a couple of minutes back. But the only difference here is that here you are trying to control a variety of tools by using a single platform, which is where all your content and data resides. Now, why content and data are important is because, like I said, content and data are required for every marketing tool or platform. And if you are able to exercise control on your content and data by using one platform as the main platform and the others as satellites, then in theory, you're reducing quite a bit of complexity. You're making probably life easier for yourself. And you're also able to save time, resources, and potentially a lot of investment when you're running such a marketing organization. I'll delve a bit more about this as we go further down in today's presentation. Now, we looked at so many platforms, and they keep coming. They just keep coming. There is no end to it. And over the next 2 or 3 years or 4 years, even with so many acquisitions and buyouts happening in the space, we'll still end up getting a lot of platforms. So now the question is that with so many platforms, people are spending a lot of dollars investing in many best-of-breed platforms that you saw some examples of in the MarTech stack. And having made that investment or those kind of investments in different tools, if the marketing organization is still limited in its ability to do certain things, or is not agile enough to be able to stay close to the customer, at times ahead of the customer, to have predictive abilities, then a lot of questions might be rising, in terms of the investment made in such tools. And therefore, what I try to do in the next few slides is try and, kind of demystify, what some of these tools have the ability to do, and really how are they enabling you or not being able to enable you when it comes to some of the basics of digital marketing. And I'll start with the most basic approach, which is around the customer journey. When we talk about the customer journey, whether it's a B2B or a B2C journey, as you go along this journey, you will realize in a real-life situation, and this is just one example of a customer journey, you'll realize the number of tools that will come into play and, what stages they come into play. So this is like a typical top funnel starting out with, could be, some prospect, coming to your website through search or social or through a survey or through an email or something else like a webcast invite, comes to the website. Now emails are driving all this traffic to specific landing pages. Your landing pages might be built on a system like a Sitecore, and then once they start interacting with certain content on your website or landing pages, they start, giving up information about themselves to you. They may become a known visitor. Their data goes into your CRM system, which might be integrated with Sitecore, and then this CRM system starts recording, data about known prospects or visitors. Now then, they probably leave your website. You try and retarget them, sending them some offer or some email or some banner, and try and get them to go back to your site and try and get them to sign up for any downloadable asset, etc. Let's say, this person comes back, clicks, reads some content. As soon as he clicks and reads content, some profile matching happens in your CRM. A certain lead score is assigned, and this prospect then probably becomes a known visitor for you or an MQL once it has passed a certain threshold in terms of lead scoring. Now another profile in CRM is updated, lead score is updated, and with this updated data, you continue to nurture this prospect by sending them relevant content, probably some thought leadership, etc., through different channels. Now these channels could be social marketing, through email, probably through blogging, etc. Right? And then you continue to do that till they reach a point where their lead score keeps getting updated based on their interactions with your content. And let's say they reach a point where they are ready to, let's say, participate in an event. Again, the lead score is updated, and once it reaches a certain threshold, the lead is transitioned from marketing to sales. Then the prospect hopefully engages the sales team, and then the sales cycle takes over. So this is just one example of a customer journey. But the reason I wanted to quickly go through this is because if you see, we're talking about different kinds of platforms within a very standard kind of customer journey. There are as many as 6 to 7 platforms that are being utilized at different points in the journey. And a lot of marketers do use such tools. This is fairly standard and par for course as far as the use of tools to both create as well as push out content to prospects based on their journey and where they are in their journey and how they have interacted with your content. And so the point that I was trying to make is that there are multiple tools involved, and a lot of marketing organizations are already using multiple tools to be able to target prospects and customers across their journey. Now we go back to the concept of the distributed team and the structure and the investment required. We just saw a sample customer journey where there were multiple tools involved. And now if we look at a CMO or an SVP's marketing spend, just purely in terms of marketing technology, you have certain tools. So for instance, you might be using Sitecore for your content management or for your website, content and experience management. You might be using a video platform like a Kaltura or a Brightcove. You might have Salesforce or some other CRM in place. You'll have, probably Hootsuite or something else for social. For marketing automation, you might be using Eloqua or HubSpot or Pardot. For content marketing, you might be using tools like Compendium or Compose, etc. And then you have, for each of these tools, because each of them works in a unique way, there are different skill sets needed to implement these tools and then to run them. You may have built, capabilities in-house to run and manage these tools and run campaigns and content through them. But when you're using any kind of technology, you will invariably at some point need some external help, or have to maintain anywhere between 1 to 3 persons per area or per technology to be able to smoothly execute your marketing campaigns using these tools. Which means that your cost of talent and operations could be as many as 15, 16 people, or if you're outsourcing this to agencies, you might be working with 1, 2, or 3 different agencies, because there are very few agencies that will have skill sets or expertise across each of these platforms. So we're talking about structure where you're either working with up to anywhere between 2 to 4 agencies externally, or you want to have a team of anywhere between 10 and 15 people internally, plus you're bearing the license and subscription costs of multiple tools, which means for a fairly standard customer journey that I just walked you through, you might be ending up spending a lot of dollars in trying to invest, not just in the tools, but also in how you use those tools on an ongoing basis. Now, obviously people may turn around and say that, well, I don't need that many tools. I can do with 1, 2, or 3 of these. But even if you're using 3 of these tools, you'll still need to have at least a 6 to 7 person team just for marketing technologies, or be able to, having to work with at least 2 agencies externally to be able to support the usage of these tools, and also take, ongoing support from agencies and their expertise on these tools. So the bottom line is that if you're going to be using multiple tools, there will be, an element of higher investment, and there will be more complexity and more people involved. Now, before I move on to jump onto something very, very, different from what I've been talking about so far, I talked about multiple tools, the fact that they feature in your customer journey, and when I look at the challenges that marketers face when they have different tools to run their marketing programs on, I keep going back to what we keep hearing these days about single view of the customer. Now, single view of the customer is something which is extremely hot in terms of digital marketing technology trends. A lot of people, a lot of leading thought leaders in the space, some of the best conferences in the world, and some of the best advisories in the world in the areas of digital marketing and digital marketing technologies are talking about the importance of getting a single view of the customer. But I can tell you that very few organizations in the world, some of the earliest adopters of marketing technology, some of the heaviest investors in things like data and insights, even very few of those have tried to make moves towards a single view of the customer. And the reason why I'm bringing this up at this point of this presentation is because a single view of the customer is very hard to even imagine about till you reduce the complexity in terms of your tools, and also reduce the way you're running the operations around those tools. If you're working with 3, 4, 5, or 10 tools, then getting to a single view of the customer can really be a nightmare for you. And this is not something which I'm just underselling. But at a recent conference, a Serious Decisions conference that I happened to attend, I was talking to a CMO of a very large manufacturing company, and just we were talking about the importance of SVC, and he mentioned that they did a small trial towards SVC, and the amount of dollars and effort and operational cost that incurred. He said that I'm happy staying away from SVC till the time that I reach a point where my marketing organization is mature enough to be able to appreciate that getting to SVC is not easy, and unless we reduce the complexities around the kind of tools we're using, then we'll end up spending more on SVC than we've spent collectively on all the marketing tools that we have so far. And that's a very honest appraisal of what what SVC could end up into if some of the basics, like what I showed here, are not really addressed. So complexities with using multiple tools really will hamper things like trying to get to a single view of the customer, because even your basic tools are probably not working in unison for you to even think about SVC, which is essentially an aggregated and holistic representation of data about your customers. Now, your customer data will be in all of these platforms. Getting it to a single platform from multiple tools using so many people and probably external help takes a lot of doing. And therefore, if you want to move down the curve, if you want to move down towards SVC, which is an evolving concept, then you need to look at this very seriously in terms of how you're using different platforms and how can you first cut down on what you're entailing in terms of complexity, operations, agility, ability, and costs before you even talk about SVC. A very interesting corollary to this is the IoT. When wearables like the Fitbits and TomToms of this world became popular, what we probably didn't realize is that when these devices started getting synced with other devices, then obviously they'll become more appealing to us, which is what is happening today. But then a few product makers, a few brands went a step ahead and actually created things like wearable watches, which are fully internet enabled, and they do a bunch of things which your phone will do or which your tablet will do. But these are expensive and not affordable. Utility-wise, there are still questions up in the air as to how much you can use them for. So therefore, what began as fancy wearables, probably 2, 3, 4 years back, have evolved to sync devices as you see today. But a few products have gone ahead and actually created fully internet-enabled devices out of them, which are clearly not affordable. So very interesting corollary with SVC is that the IoT is also an evolving concept. What is cool today, may not be that cool tomorrow and may become obsolete tomorrow. But to get to things like affordable and utility concepts of IoT, then a lot of the features that you see today will need to be changed, and that will happen through IoT. Similar to what the SVC concept is all about, what we're seeing today is baby steps towards it. But then, unless you fix all the things before the SVC is even envisioned, then it's useless to think about SVC at all in the first place. So having set that background, behind different kinds of tools, the customer journey, and some of the challenges that marketing may face using, so many different kinds of tools and people, we focus on the world of Sitecore. And for the sake of the next few slides, we talk about the importance of the world of Sitecore and the others. Now, these others could be, a variety of tools that, you might be already using, you might be considering, or you might have used at some point in the past. Again, to reiterate the common theme, everything is bound by content and everything is based on data. Given that theme, let's talk about Sitecore. With more than 4,000 customers globally, working with some of the best brands in the world, and a lot of these customers that are already using Sitecore successfully for a number of years might also be using a fair number of other marketing technologies within their marketing organizations. And they could be using anywhere between 1 to 8 to 10 to 15 other tools for different purposes before they started using Sitecore, during this, the time that they started using Sitecore, or now when they're using Sitecore along with these tools. So having been using so many different tools and the fact that these customers are or might be using so many different platforms, what is the Sitecore ecosystem or connected ecosystem really all about? And why should these customers really care? Why should these Sitecore customers care about an ecosystem? And the answer lies in a very simple question. The choice with a lot of these marketing organizations is that Should they continue to use Sitecore as a standalone edifice, a platform, and also keep running multiple other tools with multiple other teams and people? Or do they look at something which is seriously possible, which is what the Sitecore ecosystem is all about? What it is basically is hooking up Sitecore with various platforms which are complementary in nature, which might help in augmenting the overall marketing performance of teams. Now, how that happens is in a variety of ways. I'll walk you through a few examples of that. But the bottom line here, or the core concept, is that the ecosystem comprises various tools sitting not along with Sitecore, but working with Sitecore to create something which is definitely better in terms of output, performance, agility, more cost optimized, and easier to maintain and run. And if you recall, when I was talking about the control or command center model, which is based on hub and spoke, what I've done here is basically just replaced the hub and spoke with real-world examples of how this entire thing can potentially run for any marketing organization around Sitecore. Why around Sitecore? It's because content and data is critical to marketing. Sitecore is a content and experience management platform. It does a bunch of other things, but if you are able to control content and experience across your campaigns and your digital properties from Sitecore, then you are putting yourself into a position of strength because you're using Sitecore for really its biggest strength. And then the other big thing is data. With Sitecore, you get the experience database, which is on the cloud. It is what offers tremendous possibilities with doing things with marketing data. If you are able to get your marketing data into the experience database, your prospect and customer data into your experience database, you're able to do a lot of things on Sitecore which you'll find difficult to execute otherwise. And I'll talk a bit more about that as we go along. But the central control model here around Sitecore basically is a hub and spoke, where your content and data is central and is in Sitecore, and all your spokes are around the various marketing platforms that you're already using. You might have been using them for a while, or you might have invested in them recently, but you're using them in different silos and not really connecting them to Sitecore. I'll walk you through a few very, very good examples of that, which is basically how the connector ecosystem truly works. When we talk about video platforms, a lot of marketing organizations are increasingly using video platforms like Brightcove, YouTube, Kaltura, Vidyard. There's many of them. Now, by using a Sitecore video connector, what you can potentially do is that you can control, you can upload, you can delete, you can manage all your videos without having to go into a Kaltura or a Brightcove. You can do that from within Sitecore. And not only can you do that from within Sitecore, you can also categorize whatever you upload based on the categorization that exists in your video platform. So instead of going to the Brightcove interface, you enter the Sitecore interface, you upload files here, you delete files here, you give captions to your videos, you can write copy around them, you can title them, you can categorize them, and further, you can also sync them with your video platform. So, whatever is deleted from Sitecore is deleted from Brightcove. Whatever categorization exists in Brightcove exists in Sitecore. Now, that's just the ease of operations part of it. You don't have to go to two platforms. The best part about this is that whatever you're recording in terms of engagement with your videos, that data can go into Sitecore's experience database. And when you are able to do that, then, if somebody has gone and seen 3 of your videos and spent X number of minutes on those videos, and you're able to capture that data and get it into Sitecore, the next time that person comes to your website, which is built on Sitecore, you can actually personalize the experience based on what they've done with your videos. Now, you can do this in a variety of other ways as well. But those are all more time-consuming, complex, and harder to implement than this kind of connector, which is extremely cost-effective. It takes very little time to implement, and it can be customized from one organization to the other. And what you can also do is you can track performance, you can extract reports, and you can control your videos from within Sitecore instead of going to a video platform. Another example is of a Sitecore email connector. You might be using, systems like Eloqua or Marketo or Pardot or ExactTarget, and these are used to, create email campaigns and, do nurture and scoring and all of that. Now, what the Sitecore email connector basically does is it'll enable you to create emails from within Sitecore. You don't have to go to Eloqua, you don't have to go to Marketo or any other platform. Go to Sitecore. The connector will enable you to create an email, create the category for the email, tag it to a particular campaign, tag it or attach it to a particular folder based on whichever marketing automation tool you're using, name your email, and then you can do everything that you want to do in an email. Using the WYSIWYG editor of Sitecore, you can do the subject line, you can do A/B testing, you can write content, you can take content and assets from Sitecore's media library and get them into an email here, instead of going to Eloqua or Marketo or any other platform and trying to store assets there, create emails there. What you're doing is you have all your content, all your marketing assets in Sitecore, and you're creating emails directly from within your Sitecore interface when you're using any of these tools. So what we're saying is that you continue to use any other marketing automation tool, but you're reducing the time, effort, complexity, and increasing your ease of use by using a single platform, which is Sitecore, to create everything that you would do in an external marketing automation platform. Further, what you can do is that you can now, because you're creating emails within Sitecore, you can also personalize both your campaigns as well as your website by integrating data from, let's say, a HubSpot or a Pardot into Sitecore. Now, another cool thing that you can do here is that, you're aware of nurture, you're doing scoring, etc. And when you also do these things from within Sitecore without having to go into another system, that's just, another great value add, of this kind of a connector, because you can actually do lead scoring, and you can track it within Sitecore instead of going to Eloqua, extracting those reports, or going to an ExactTarget and doing all of that on an external platform. You can do all of that from within Sitecore. So imagine a team which has, 2 or 3 Sitecore people who are able to, do this from within Sitecore instead of having a team of, 2 or 3 marketing automation people along with 2 or 3 Sitecore people, where, you're just basically doubling your team size and increasing the investment required to run campaigns from this platform, instead of, having the ability to do it from within Sitecore. Further, what you can also do is you can do dynamic content changes in these emails, which is very easy to do in a content management system. And here it's important to mention something very basic and very useful, is that your marketing automation tool is not a content management system. So if you're overloading it with content, assets, and different kinds of marketing collateral, etc., you are not doing yourself any service at all, because as a content management system, systems like Sitecore are built to be able to manage and handle that kind of content. So if you're able to write your emails from within Sitecore, then you're able to use each of the content elements that you already have stored in Sitecore, and it's so much easier to do these from a single platform like Sitecore. Another addition to this is the form connector. Now, what does the form connector do? Anybody who's using marketing automation would be familiar with, every tool has its own kind of forms, that you use for campaigns to get leads. Now, what if we said that instead of using these tools from other systems, which are marketing automation systems, you go into Sitecore and you are able to use a pre-configured feature which is called, import form. And what you're doing is you're basically getting your forms from any marketing automation tool into Sitecore and able to use them from within Sitecore. Further, you can customize these fields in Sitecore itself. You don't have to go to your marketing automation platform. And whatever you customize in the form of fields in any form will get auto-synced with your marketing automation platform. The great advantage of this is that you can manage all your forms within Sitecore. You can, whatever submissions happen on these forms, those submissions go into your Sitecore database as well, which is your XDB, apart from your marketing automation database. You can also cross-leverage leads data. So whatever is going into your marketing automation tool is also going into Sitecore, and that inherently is very, very beneficial because you can cross-leverage this data for personalization. And finally, the biggest advantage here is that for any particular lead, in the form of form submission, you're able to capture that lead's properties for, for advanced personalization, experience optimization. So imagine somebody filling up something on a form. That data also goes into your Sitecore system, and that, will enable you to recognize that person when they come to your site anytime in the future and be able to market, target, and personalize the experience to that prospect in a much, much superior way because that data is already in Sitecore. You don't have to do anything about it. So this is another example of how you can increase efficiency and increase the effectiveness by using a simple connector like a form connector, with Sitecore for any marketing automation tool. This is another, example of, how different kinds of components and connectors with Sitecore help. Bazaar Voice is a very popular ratings and review tool. It's used extensively by a lot of marketing organizations to manage reviews and ratings around products. And what the Sitecore Bazaar Voice connector really does is that it gives you a single point of access in Sitecore to manage ratings, reviews, questions, and answers related to any product. You're able to go into a single Sitecore interface. You don't have to go to Bazaar Voice. You just have to do a sign up with your Bazaar Voice account, and then any Sitecore person or in your team who's, either in-house or, somebody whom you've hired externally can go into Sitecore and use this component to be able to manage, approve, get details of, ratings and the reviews around any product that you're using, or that your customers are commenting or reviewing on. So that this is another example of how you use Sitecore with a complementary platform. Blogging, a lot of most organizations are using some blogging platform or the other to run their own in-house blogs, to run and maintain them. And at times they're using multiple platforms as well. Some popular ones are Blogger, WordPress, etc. And there are some other platforms as well which are used for blogs. Now, what if you could do all of this from within Sitecore? Why go to another platform when you can do this from within Sitecore? And what's more, what you can do is when you're able to manage your blogs from within Sitecore, you can not only create new blog posts, you can do everything with the help of a workflow. You can categorize posts, you can save drafts, you can put workflow around that, you can modify existing blogs. You can also use Sitecore's own rich text features, and the media library to make your blogs. Let's say you want to add an infographic to a blog. So instead of going to a blogger using ready-made themes, fetching media or infographics or visuals or videos from someplace else, you just go to Sitecore Media Library and get everything from there that you need for a blog post and just post it, as if you were using Blogger. It's almost like using Blogger, but inside a much more powerful interface like Sitecore. So those are some examples of how Sitecore really can work with a variety of systems and help you do much more by investing lesser in terms of people, operations, and as well as costs, and also increase the ability that you have as a marketer by using Sitecore. Essentially, what we are saying is that you can complement your marketing stack with this kind of an ecosystem. You can do a lot of these things from within Sitecore instead of having to flip between multiple tools. You can reduce silos or eliminate them altogether, and really cut down on what your team operations can be. And then you can move towards concepts like single view of the customer if you're able to tie things together around a central system. Now, when we talk about single view of the customer around in Sitecore, you have what we call Experience Profile. Now, this has been built to work like a single view of the customer. And if you're able to integrate your other tools with Sitecore or some of those tools with Sitecore, then what you're doing is you're able to get data from those tools into Sitecore, and you're able to enrich profiles like the one that you see here with data from your other marketing tools. And this is a great advantage because once you aggregate and integrate this data, you are truly able, you're truly able to move down the path towards SVC, because SVC can be very big, it can be very broad, but to be able to take the right fundamental steps, you first need to have the ability to get that data into a single profile option, which Sitecore can provide through the Experience Profile. The benefits of having a control center around Sitecore or an ecosystem around Sitecore is that you can have one team which is trained on Sitecore, or one agency partner. You really don't need to have different teams for different platforms. You can have a central control in using Sitecore as a command center instead of distributed control. You can lower complexity, step up agility. You can sync between platforms. I gave you a few examples of how you can sync, marketing automation or review tools or video tools with Sitecore. You can have all your marketing assets and content in Sitecore where they should be, and you can have all your marketing data in Sitecore's XCP. You can run all your key tools from within Sitecore through some of the connectors that I showed. And you can combine the reporting from Sitecore's Experience Analytics. Sitecore's fundamental strengths lie in the three things that you see here: the Experience Platform, the Optimization Platform, and Experience Analytics. And if you're able to create a control center through which you're able to leverage these strengths of Sitecore by integrating with other systems, then you're really taking a lot of good steps towards doing much more with Sitecore.